I am here with a beautiful, amazing Heather Kerner, who has helped me through what has been the most intense phase of my life, I can say. Some call it a divorce. I call it the most intense phase of my life for now. And I want to share how her gift, her skill, and her expertise has supported me in maintaining physical health, emotional health, and well-being. What Heather does is acupuncture. And so I want her to explain a little bit about what that is because I won't be able to do so in the complete clinical manner that I know that she can. And then I want to share in some conversation with her how her work has really supported me in my journey, because she may or may not know about it. But I've been seeing Heather now for regular weekly sessions for a few months, a couple months, something like that. And boy, I look forward to it every week. And it's been a place of wellness and a place of just my energy to come back into flow, I guess, and into alignment, and a time for me to get very still and very quiet and receive. So Heather, what do you do? How do you do all that for me?
So there's a few different ways of explaining acupuncture and the response to stress and the body's response to stress. The two that most people would know would be the Eastern model and the Western model. So let's start with the Western model, which is when we are experiencing trauma or stress, our body is producing adrenaline and cortisol, which are the fight or flight hormones. So what we do is we downregulate those, and then we boost the secretion of dopamine and serotonin. So that allows the parasympathetic rest and digest to take over. But from an Eastern medical perspective, we look at the body as in the whole idea is that everything should be open and flowing, right? And so our body's way of adapting to stress or keeping homeostasis with our external circumstances and our internal circumstances is to protect by contracting. And so when we're experiencing a stressful time in our life, our body contracts and contracts and contracts. So now we have this like corset on, right? It's contracting our heart, our lungs, our digestion, everything. And so there's this kind of feedback loop that doesn't allow us to get into that parasympathetic state, because when we go to lay down, our body's like, well, wait, we're still breathing really shallow. Our shoulders are still up here. We're in battle. We cannot relax. So that's what I do. I find these tension patterns or this calcified pattern, relax it, and so then the feedback loop of rest and digest can take over.
Yes, that is what you do. And yes, that is what I was, and sometimes still am at certain moments experiencing, is that tightness, that contraction, that constriction. And we are in a time right now on the planet where we are experiencing that more frequently perhaps than ever. So that makes a lot of sense. So you are able to, how are you? So let me back up for a minute. So the first time I went in to see you, you asked me some questions about, my constitution and how I'm experiencing, life and where my stressors are, et cetera. And then I felt like you were doing your own form of reading me and my energy. And I'm curious to know, how do you know which arenas to go towards first? Like which organ systems, or which, how do you know where to start with someone that's kind of all bundled up like I was feeling when I started working with you?
Sure. So the first thing we do is subjective. So I take all of your symptoms and kind of put them into a pattern. And then we have objective ways of feeling. So I read your pulse, and where I felt 6 different positions. And so that gives me an insight into what's happening in the body. When someone is stressed and contracted, their pulse will actually feel like it. We call it wiry. It feels like a guitar string. If someone is kind of like if a hose is kinked and there's like excess water over here but not enough nourishment over here, it will feel what we call slippery. I'll feel it bounding like this if there's a lot of stagnant heat. It will be really rapid and forceful like that. So that kind of gives me an insight into which meridians to kind of focus on and what I need to do to relax the body. We also look at the tongue. We haven't really been doing much of that lately because of the face mask. But the tongue is the only muscle that's not covered with skin. So it kind of lets me know what's happening in the tissue on the inside. And generally when I'm going to be prescribing an herbal formula, I will have you take a quick peek at your tongue just to kind of confirm that we're on the right track for the herbal diagnosis.
Cool. Okay. Yeah, we didn't do the tongue. We'll do that next time, or maybe not. Whatever you're comfortable with, because we are in some weird times. And that, by the way, I will say for those of you who might consider acupuncture, I feel very safe going to see Heather. Things are very clean there. They're very attentive to keeping things safe for their clients, wiping things down, keeping as much distance as you can. And so I will say that as well. Wow. Well, I wonder too, over time, so I don't know if you remember what my pulse was like when I first started seeing you, if it was the wiry or if it was the other thing that you mentioned that I already forgot, the really fast, hot, intense. But are you noticing, or do you notice like improvement in the taking of the pulse each time? What are you able to perceive or sense?
Sure. So we always take a notice on where your pulse was when I first met you, and I kind of have like an internal recording of that. But when you first came, you were experiencing some digestive upset, and so your pulse was very wiry. And we talked about how the liver in Chinese medicine is responsible for moving everything in the body. And so that's the first meridian that gets backed up. And so when that happens, the liver, we put it in the wood category. And when it's working within nature, it can have an effect on the earth category.
When is the ideal time? And I'm asking this because in your office bathroom, there is a very funny cartoon, and it shows a very unhealthy person coming to the acupuncturist. And I mean, unhealthy, like she hasn't taken care of her body. And she says, my knee is painful. I have arthritis. I'm 40 pounds overweight. I have headaches. I don't sleep. When should I come see you? And the practitioner says about 10 years ago. So when is the ideal time for us to go and receive these kinds of treatments?
Yeah, I think the correct answer would be yesterday. It's the beauty of Chinese medicine is that, like I said, we're always trying to keep homeostasis with our external world and our internal world. And so when we're finding balance, when someone's on a balance beam, they don't just get on. We do this, right? So the beauty of our medicine is actually very preventative. But most people find their way to us because they're in some sort of pain, discomfort, or disease. And so we can work with the body's own innate intelligence to kind of course correct, but it is really good at preventative medicine.
Perfect. Beautiful. And one other thing I wanted to share that was so helpful for me in my work with you, which, by the way, I'm still working with Heather. So now I don't want to stop going to acupuncture ever because I am feeling like it's my reset button sometimes for the whole week. But one thing that you really helped me with was, and this was either probably in our very first session, you said to me, have you cried yet? And I had not been able to at that point because I had not shared with my children what the situation was with our family change. So I was holding everything in and holding it together and putting, my best effort into keeping a normal so that when we were ready to tell them, there would be, they would not have to be in the knowing too early before we had answers to their questions. So when you asked me that, I think I said, well, not too much, like I haven't been able to cry too much. I went home and really started thinking about that and started wondering, I wonder when I'm going to cry. Like, I wonder, because we can't make ourselves cry, really. What some of us maybe can, who took acting training, but you know, we gotta, the waves of grief come when they come, and we're not in control of the timing of that. But shortly after that visit, it might have been later that night or the next day, I got it. Like the cry came, and I truly do credit the treatment with bringing some flow and balance back into my system so that I could let go and release all of that emotional energy that was so like stacked and packed within the body, holding tightly to it because I didn't feel like I could. So thank you for asking me that important question. And thank you for offering through your clinical work the path to releasing.
Thank you for trusting me. But yeah, that, I mean, we say emotion is just energy, you know, so it's, you can feel it in the pulse when it's backed up. It's kind of like taking the top off the pressure cooker, you know, so once we kind of you know, sent that message to the body, it was able to release in like a graceful way.
Yes, indeed, for sure. So I thank you, Sister Heather, and I will put a link. Heather is a local, so for South Florida, local practitioner. I don't know how much longer she's going to be here because her soul is carrying her lots of different places. We shall see. But for now, for those of you that are going through any kind of intensity, or for those of you that just really want to bring yourselves back into balance, those who want to beef up the immune system, a really good idea during a pandemic, right? Contact her. I'll put her contact information in here, and she can work with you and give you some insight and direction and support. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.